Black family, we are all a part of the Master's plan, brothers and sisters in the family of man. I am you and you are me. We are all of the same life tree, and whether we like it or not, you and me is all we've got. Black family. Hi, I'm Danny Queen, and welcome to another edition of Color Me Poetry. I'd like to welcome my beautiful guest, Miss Elise Greenfield. And you are children's, short story, children's writer, if you will.
Yes, I write children's books. Thank you. I'm very happy to be here.
It's my pleasure and my honor to have you here. We've enjoyed your books so much over the years. I can call the name of many of your books right off the top of my head. One of my favorites is Honey, I Love.
Oh, thank you.
And Niecy, is his
Me
niece?
and Niecy.
Me and Niecy,
yes.
Yeah. I remember buying that for my nephews and my nieces some time ago.
That's a story of a little girl who has an imaginary friend. And when I wrote it, I didn't realize how many children actually have that experience. But I've received so many letters from teachers telling me that when they read it to their classes, maybe half or more of the children have imaginary friends.
Is that healthy for children?
Oh, I think it's wonderful.
Because parents sometimes tell children, oh, stop imagining things.
Oh, I think it's wonderful that they're using their imagination to fill a need, and that in most cases these children disappear when the child no longer needs an imaginary friend.
So they can call them up whenever they want to.
Yeah.
Like a genie out of a bottle. What made you get into children's literature?
Well, in the beginning, I started writing because I was looking for satisfying work. I wanted to do something that was in harmony with me. And I thought writing might be that work. And I was writing various kinds of stories, short stories for adults, some poetry, and children's books. My first book that was published was Bubbles, which was published by Drum and Spear Press, black press that was located in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, I remember the Drum and Spear bookstore.
Yes, and the press was associated with that.
Oh.
Before that, I'd had some short stories published in Negro Digest, which later became Black World.
That was a part of Ebony. Was that Ebony Publication?
It was part of the Johnson family, yes.
Yes, beautiful. That's out of Chicago.
Yeah.
Well, for children's literature, you find that it's a very different kind of feel from other literature, the way it's approached by publishers.
By publishers or by writers?
Well, by writers in general and by publishers.
Well, for me, it's a way of looking at children. I try to observe their lives and see what's going on with them, see what their feelings might be. I also use my memory to look back to my own childhood. I look at what's going on in the world today, things that children have to deal with. And it's different in that you're writing for people who are in a certain stage of life. You know, just as you could write for a person in old age or midlife crisis. Well, this is a different stage of life, childhood.
I think sometimes the innocence of a child, I think children, the seed of truth, really, if you will. Because sometimes the innocence of a child just floors me. I have young nieces and nephews, and some of the things they say will just really just rock me, you know.
Well, they're very straightforward.
Yes.
And their innocence makes them so vulnerable. And that's why there's so much danger in some of the images that African-American children receive from the media and from some books and newspapers and sitcoms, all of those things that give children negative images of themselves.
Mrs. Greenfield, why is it that you feel the need to fill the void in children's literature?
Well, that's a mission that quite a few of us have, authors, illustrators, agents, and editors, African Americans, all of us who want to give children reflections of themselves so that they can see themselves. All people have the need to see themselves affirmed, to see their lives affirmed, their families, their culture affirmed in theater, books, television. We all want that. And children especially need that now because they are being attacked so much that those of us who are working in this field are trying to just catch up and give some balance to the picture.
There's so much on children nowadays. I mean, they're faced with so much. I mean, when you think about inner city children, they're faced with, you know, the drug and the whole drug subculture. I mean, parents, male-female relationships, all that impacts on the lives of children.
Yes, it does. And the problems are so complex that they have to be analyzed totally. And I think very often we will take one solution against another instead of trying to analyze the problem full circle and attack it full circle, because there's so many influences on children and so many ways in which they're affected by today's society.
How is that you're able to, and I noticed in your books, you seem to be able to just tune right in, and it seems like you're feeling the needs and the wants of the child.
Well, that's certainly what I try to do. And when I'm doing it, I'm never sure that it's going to work. It's just an attempt that I make to reflect the lives of children, to reflect the lives that they know. And that doesn't mean I don't deal with problems, but I want to leave children with some kind of hope at the end. And I want to leave them with the knowledge that their people are very strong, very resilient, and have continued to struggle. I want them to know how beautiful they are. And they don't see that very often in the reflection. If they look in the mirror, they may see it, but sometimes they are so overwhelmed by the negative images that they don't even realize how beautiful they are.
I'm glad you said that, because working in the school system, I've seen they had, you know, book fairs and that type of thing. And I haven't seen a whole lot of black children's books at all.
Yeah. For the most part, they're books about white children.
Snow White and all that.
Yes, some of the same books that were that I read when I was growing up.
The Mother Goose and all that
yes,
stuff. Yeah.
There needs to be much more work done, and there are a lot of writers writing it, but not everyone is getting published, and that's where the stop is between the writer and the publisher.
How do you make publishers see, how do you make agents see that, you know, there's a great need, there's a great void there? They don't care, or they just see the bottom line, which is business?
Well, I have a wonderful agent who has the same philosophy that I have, and so I don't have to worry about that. We're both, she's a part of the mission, as I, have said before. Yes, that's right. We just have to keep trying to convince publishers to publish the work. Now, there are some African-American publishers, and Black Butterfly Children's Books has published a lot of my recent work, and they also are part of the mission, you see, because they understand the problem and they see the need.
There's a company out of New Jersey that comes to mind. I can't think of the name of them.
Just Us Books.
Just Us Books.
Yes, they're doing a wonderful job.
They are doing a great job, and I see them in the Pyramid all the time. I see their product. And the type of things that they're doing is beautiful, because our people need that, and again, they're feeling the need. You know, I often say, like in the record industry, we had the Motown, but and that's great, but we don't seem to have that same type of major publisher in the black community.
Well, I imagine that it's easier to sell records,
That's
than it is to sell literature. Records sell in the millions, and they're more a popular culture than books are. And although there are many, many readers, and wherever I go to conferences or to sign books, there are parents and educators there who really are looking for books about African-American children. Still, reading is not the main occupation of most of America. So it's much more difficult to get money, investors to invest in a publishing house than it is in a record company. But there are a lot of African-American publishing houses. They're small, and they have begun to organize, so I think we'll be hearing much more from them.
I think that, it's very much needed that we do have some, but, the little ones that are there, I think we need to support them and do all that we can to help them to grow and to fill that need even more.
Well, I think it's a mutual need as far as the writers, the publishers, and the public.
Educating the public.
Yes, but the public has to cooperate by at least looking at them. They don't have to buy the books if it's not something that they want, because the writers and the illustrators and the publishers have the obligation to do the kind of work that will have meaning for people. That's our obligation. and something that will be uplifting. But I think that if we all cooperate, the publishers have an obligation to the writer. The writers have an obligation to the publishers. You know, so it works both ways.
So it's interdependence there.
Yes, because when you go to a publisher, you expect them to keep accurate records.
Of course.
Accurate records, yeah. And you want, you have to earn a living. You can't write if you're starving.
I know that well.
It's your job, it's your work. And you expect the publisher to produce a quality book. Okay. Now, on the writer's end, the writer has an obligation to write well, to have studied the craft, so that they know what they write, they know how to write, and to take into consideration what will move humanity forward, the kinds of things that they write, so that they avoid stereotypes and things like that. And
that's very important too, because we know about stereotypes, how they've been perpetuated, you know, year after year, generation after generation.
Yes, that's true.
How is it that, does it take a special kind of person, a special kind of writer to write children's literature?
Well, only special in the sense that you are interested in children, maybe have a special interest in children, and that interest, I think, has to precede the decision to write for children. In other words, I've always been interested in spending time with children and enjoyed them. Enjoy watching how they express themselves verbally and through their body language, the kinds of things that they do, the way they think. And then the other aspect of that is that you have to know how to use language so that it is childlike, and that the symbols and the references will come out of a child's experience.
And you can tune into that and use it. So you don't have to be a child psychologist or haven't studied elementary education or anything like that necessarily.
No, you have to be, I think what all writers have to be, a student of human nature. And in this case, with a focus on children, and not necessarily exclusively, because you know, a lot of people write for children and adults.
That's very important to be able to do that, to make that transition. You know,
yes, it is.
To go from one type of literature to the other.
Yes, if you're going to do that, I think there's value in focusing on one or the other. But if you're going to write for children and adults, you have to be able to make that transition. And
to the simplicity also. There's power, I think, also in being simple, but complex, and teaching at the same time. Because the children teach you also. And also you learn when you're writing. When you're developing a character, you have to study that character, get inside that character so that you know him or her. You have to know that person, and that means you have to give it deep thought, and maybe the kind of thought you've never done before on that particular kind of person. And so you learn as you write, and you grow. I know I've learned so much from children, because sometimes they just startle me, some of the things that they say. Things that I would never think of to say. They say. It just comes to them, and they don't really think about it for 10 minutes. They just say it, you know. The innocence of a child is so beautiful.
They're always thinking, too. They're always watching us and trying to figure out the world. And so they have a lot of questions, because the world is a new place to them. They're looking through new eyes.
A whole nother world.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm Danny Queen. This is Color Me Poetry. We're going to take a break. We're going to be right back. I'm Danny Queen, and welcome back to Color Me Poetry. We're here with Miss Elise Greenfield. Miss Greenfield, you have some new publications out.
Yes,
tell us about some of the publications. You have some from Black Butterfly?
Yes, I have some from Black Butterfly, and I brought one from Dial Press. This is Night on Neighborhood Street from Dial, and that is a new book that, in fact, all of these were published in 1991. It's a book of poetry about events that are taking place on one street, in one neighborhood, on one evening. And it was illustrated by Jan Spivey Gilchrist. I love her work.
She's beautiful.
Yes.
Very colorful. I mean, she's very talented.
Very. She has been in fine arts for many years and had exhibitions all over the country and in Canada. And now she's doing some children's book illustration as well. And I'm very happy that she's doing my book.
It seems to have to be a marriage between the writer, and the artist there, and she seems to have that.
Yes,
chemistry.
I feel that way very much. Ordinarily, when an author writes a manuscript, the artist and the author don't work together.
Oh, really?
They work through the editor at the publishing house. In fact, some of them I've never met or spoken with.
You never read some of your illustrations?
That's true. But Jan Gilchrist and I have formed kind of a collaboration. We just began calling each other, and so we talk very often, and it's more of a real collaboration, yes, and we talk about the book.
It's good to have that personal rapport with you.
I love it, yes. It's very satisfying to work in that way.
That's the same thing some musicians have told me, professional musicians have told me. They've been in the studio doing studio work, and the person who does the background singing on their recording, they never saw him.
Yeah, they did it at another time. They recorded at a different time in a different place. Yeah.
We wouldn't know that.
The technology
is really something else.
Yeah, with music. I also brought 4 board books, which were published by Black Butterfly Children's Books. And board books are books that are on the heavy cardboard pages, and they're for children, infants, through up to 5 or 6 years old.
Oh, wow.
And this is I Make Music, the story of a child who loves to make music, and although she can't play an instrument very well, she has the feeling for it. She feels that she's doing it. She's very excited about it. This is Big Friend, Little Friend, another board book, and this is about a child's relationship with an older friend and a younger friend, and how he kind of, the older friend is kind of a teacher, but he changes in his relationship with the younger child. He becomes the one who teaches. And so I think that's the way, you know, children do.
Beautifully illustrated, too, also by Miss Gilchrist.
All of these books are by Jan Spivey Gilchrist, all of them. My Doll Keisha is also a board book, and that's the story of a child.
Can you hold that up?
Who?
Beautifully done.
A child and her doll. And Black Butterfly asked Jan Gilchrist and me to do the board books. And when they did, I decided to do a child with a doll, and the reason is that Jan and I had been talking about doing the need for a child with a black doll. And in fact, Jan had been nagging me about it. And so this was a perfect opportunity to do that. And the last board book is Daddy and I, and this is the story of a small boy and his father and their relationship. And
that's very important.
It's very important because these fathers have been neglected as far as the media
like they
is
don't
concerned,
exist.
as if they don't exist. That's true. And so I wanted to do that. That's also a board book.
And let's talk about that for a second, because we see so much negativity, you know, all the time, and I'm not accentuating that, but I'm just saying that the type of images that we see all the time. I love to see black fathers with their children. You know,
and we see that all over. We see it everywhere.
We don't hear about it.
We don't hear about it. We don't hear enough about it. The parents who are working hard for their children and doing their best and are there for them aren't getting the credit they deserve.
We hear about the single mothers. But rarely we hear about single fathers.
That's true, and even the parents who are not single, the ones who are married, we don't hear about them either.
That's true.
You know, and usually when we hear about single mothers, it's because it's a failure. Okay, we don't hear about the successes, about the
negative.
Yes, that's right. That's right. This First Pink Light was also published by Black Butterfly. It was originally published in 1976 by T.Y. Crowell, and it went out of print in the 80s. And Black Butterfly wanted to bring it out again with new illustrations by Jan Gilchrist.
Right. Beautifully done.
Yeah.
When a publisher say, well, we're going to redo this book and put it out again, how did they determine how many copies they're going to put out, you know, and that type of thing?
Well, that's why they're publishers, because they know how to predict the market. And I don't know, but they investigate what the market...
Depends on your popularity also?
Well,
right?
a part of that, yes. It depends on the popularity and how books are, my books are selling. It depends on their distribution, you know, and Black Butterfly has a wonderful distribution, yes, as most of the publishers that I work with do. And the last book I brought is one that I did not write. My mother wrote it, and it was published after her death. It's called Children of Long Ago, and these illustrations are also by Jan Gilchrist. My mother had written Children of Long Ago. They're poems about children growing up in the early part of this century when she grew up. And she had sent it out to publishers and received her rejections, just as all writers do. And finally, she got a call one day from Philomel Publishers, which is a part of Putnam. And the editor said she loved the poems and wanted to publish them. So my mother was very excited.
She published before you did?
No, this is a 1988 book. My mother began writing after I did.
Oh, she wrote it long ago.
No, she wrote it probably in '84.
Okay.
And had sent it out, and it was in early '86 that she heard from an editor that they wanted to do the book. And it was published after her death, because by the time it was illustrated and had gone through all the production.
She had passed.
Yeah, but...
it's been a wonderful book. I'm glad you brought that because I've never seen that before. Out of all your books that I know, I've never seen that. So this is the first time?
Well, my mother and I have two books together. That we wrote together. This is her first book.
By herself?
By herself.
Okay.
We wrote a book called I Can Do It By Myself, about a child who is trying to conquer his fear and go to the florist shop to buy a gift for his mother. And we wrote Child Times, a three-generation memoir, which is the story of my grandmother's childhood, my mother's childhood, and my childhood. Those three childhoods. We wanted to show how parents, African-American parents, have managed to give their children real childhoods, including fun, including also some difficulties, and to show the strengths of the African-American family.
I think Children of Long Ago have some historical value also as well, because well, we can look into it, I think, and see probably how children lived then, and some other things about families and the type of families that they had.
Yes, I think one of the things that, one of the reasons I think it's an important book is so often when we see children from this period, African-American children, they're downtrodden. The photographs never show children enjoying their lives. And my mother wrote in this book about the fun they had. And it's real. In fact, one reviewer wrote that it was not true, that this was not true. And that was a white reviewer who said that, because she was trying to tell us what our lives are like. And I think my mother ought to know what her life was like. She grew up.
And they said it weren't true.
There. Yes.
Why did they say it weren't true? How would he know?
Well,
I mean, she's writing about her experience.
That's right.
As a child.
I think because so much has been portrayed of children who are having so many difficulties, and the general image and the general conception of people growing up during that period is that they were all very, very poor, and my mother's family was poor. But they did get to eat sometimes. There are levels of poverty, and they had fun, and that children can have fun. They had one dress sometimes, one nice dress, one nice pair of shoes, and so they wore those. They dressed up, and they enjoyed their childhoods. And so this is what we know. We know that it works like that.
That's what I knew as a child. I mean, we were poor. I mean, but it wasn't until I got a little older till I knew we was poor, because everybody I knew lived the same way.
Yeah.
So it was like, it was normal. I didn't think of it as being poor. I mean, it was just normal. It was everybody who lived around me lived the same way, so I didn't think of it like that. And that also reminds me of a piece by Nikki Giovanni she did called Nikki Rosa, where she says, if I can remember, she said that black love is black wealth.
Yes.
And she says some people will never understand that.
Yeah, I like that poem a lot. Yeah, that's a beautiful poem, and it's the truth.
Yes, because just because you were poor don't necessarily mean, oh, you were, you know, all these sad stories, oh, you were unhappy. And, well, a lot of families are unhappy, but, I mean, being poor, because there's, you know, there's nothing of value in being poor. Nobody wants to be poor, but it's different.
Because of the strengths, and because, I mean, I'm very inspired when I think of what we have come through and how we have still managed to struggle against racism, how we've managed to laugh in spite of problems. I mean, there are times when we are downtrodden and times when we are crying. But then there are other times when we can push that away and enjoy life. And that's the part that we don't see enough of.
And I think that's very true when you think about our relationships with each other. You know, we have to build on that bond. We have to build that family.
Yeah.
And have strong family ties. I remember growing up as a child, extended family. This was about 40 or 50 of us. But we all loved and knew each other. I mean, my aunt was like my mother.
You were very close.
Yes. And that's important in the sense that to get back again to strong family ties, it's not by accident that our families have been falling apart. It's by design.
Oh yes, that's true. But I still think it exists more than we're given credit for. I think there's still people who are close to their family and to the extended family, but I
would agree.
Yeah, it's not news. You know.
So we have to accentuate the positive all the time. So that's why I always like to, you know, keep an up-tempo attitude so that I can inspire other people. And regardless of what field they may happen to be in, we can be an inspiration, as your work has been an inspiration to many children.
Thank you.
And we're certainly glad to have you here on Color Me Poetry. We hope we wish you the greatest success with all your books, continued success. And like I said earlier, you never know who your books may reach and who they may touch. Many children have come up to me and said, "Oh, I love this book that you gave, you know, for Christmas, for Kwanzaa." My nieces and nephew love the book. Honey, I Love, you know.
Oh, thank you very much.
And it's a beautiful book of poetry, and also Nisi and Me.
Oh, thank you.
And who were the illustrators on that?
Monita Barnett was the illustrator for me and Nisi. She's deceased now. Leo and Diane Dillon illustrated Honey, I Love.
Beautifully done. Certainly glad to have you here on Color Me Poetry and wish to have you back sometime in the future.
I enjoyed my visit. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. We love you and we appreciate your work. I'm Danny Queen. This is Color Me Poetry. And until next time, Color Me Poetry.